Welcome to the Global Gratitude Summit. I'm Luann Saraga Walters.
And I'm Sharon Saraga Walters.
We are so honored to have our guest today. She really is the epitome of resilience. She's also compassion, empathy, love, and gratitude. She is these from her experiences throughout her life, and most importantly, from the sudden death of her 23-year-old son. Kelly Buckley is the light in a very dark tunnel for mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, spouses and friends. Her books, Gratitude in Grief and Just One Little Thing, have inspired a worldwide movement to practice gratitude daily as both a tool to survive and thrive through life's toughest times. Her Facebook group of more than 125,000 people focuses on gratitude, compassion, and resilience. And you might have read her thought and hope-provoking words as a contributor to sites such as Maria Shriver, Open to Hope, Hello Grief, and the Huffington Post. We are very honored to welcome Kelly Buckley to the Global Gratitude Summit. Hi, Kelly. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you guys.
We had the honor and the privilege of having a pre-interview with you prior to today's session, and Sharon and I both came away from that just going, wow, you know, in that limited time frame, you inspired us, and we know the effect that you've had worldwide and that you're going to have today with the Global Gratitude Summit. So I want to start off by really opening this up so everybody's on the same page and we all are familiar with you. Would you please share the story of Stephen's accident and then how you came to gratitude from that?
So Stephen, it was my eldest son, and he passed away on July 4th, 2009. He was a hockey goalie for NC State hockey and had been playing a few days before that and had taken a puck to the chest, unbeknownst to us. And so on the 4th of July, he was swimming with his friends. And from what we could gather from the medical examiner, he had a blood clot and threw a clot when he was exerting himself physically. So it was just a really random, unexpected way to, well, I'm not sure if you ever can expect a way to lose your child, but it was just such a random way for him to go. And that changed everything for my life.
I'm sure that threw you into quite a tailspin with that. Wow. How did you land on gratitude? I mean, we've experienced loss as well with my mother and Sharon's brother, and we saw my mother-in-law and father-in-law and Sharon's parents going through this loss of a child. How did you come into the gratitude aspect?
You know, I can't really take the credit for it, to be honest with you. And it's hard for me to explain how I landed on it, because I felt like it kind of landed in my lap. When we got the call the evening of the 4th, my husband and I were actually in Kentucky. And so we drove 9 hours through the night to get to the lake because they were searching for Stephen. I had a lot of conversations with God, I think, that night on that drive. And when we reached the shore, and I was sitting on the shoreline on this little bump in the sand, and I was having this conversation with God, and I was like, okay, so I don't know what I'm going to do now. I have no solution. And I was always a person who had solutions for problems. I always was the girl who came up with the plan B. And I didn't have anything. So it was at that moment that I just said, okay, I have to find something to be thankful for. It just kind of arrived for me to either receive it or not. So I chose to receive it. And I started writing my first moments of gratitude on the back of my cable bill that I found in my purse. And because I had to find something to hang on to tether me. Because I felt like, you know, sometimes you hear people describe when they have these moments that the rug was pulled out from beneath them. Well, that's true, but when I tapped my foot around, the floor was gone too. And so I had to find something to anchor me to life. And so I gave thanks for the divers who searched for Stephen and allowed me, to bring him home. For Stephen's friends who stayed by the shore. These are college kids, and it would have been much easier for them, to walk away and retreat in such a difficult circumstance, but they didn't. And all their parents showed up and stood with us and cared and loved us. And so even it was absolutely the darkest day of my entire existence, and I could still see that there was love all around me.
Mm-hmm.
But why I started it, I still have difficulty really verbalizing that answer. I just did. It just arrived, and I decided to go with that because I didn't have any other solution.
Wow.
Oh, wow, thank you. So what was some of your previous experience with gratitude?
I mean, I think I was always a very glass half full kind of girl. I always was thankful for my family and friends and was a pretty upbeat person. I was born and raised in Newfoundland, which is kind of a very resilient and grateful place. People are good souls on a very remote island. I think you learn to be grateful for the little things, right? So just one little thing. But I didn't really have a formal gratitude practice. I didn't really journal every day. I didn't make it part of my regular routine. So it was new for me in this way, in writing it, in sharing it, and going public with it. That was very new for me. I was always a very private person, so that was a step into the unknown.
I want to ask you this because I felt for some time after my mom died, there was a sense for me that I really struggled with allowing myself to be happy or to find grace in things. It was hard. I felt like it was somehow betraying her. Did you experience any of that in your pursuit of trying to find, like you said, finding your footing through gratitude, trying to say, well, here I can be grateful for this, even knowing that Stephen wasn't there?
That's a very interesting question because I think feeling guilty about finding joy again is such a natural part of grief. And I'm sure I can reflect back and I know that there was moments, especially when we started to go back out into the world with our friendships and things like that, that I felt like that. But honestly, because I was making a conscious choice every day to look for something to be grateful for, I had integrated, and I was weaving it within my grief, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so because I was looking for something to be grateful for, I was in a way giving myself permission to be joyful, even when I was hurting. And so finding that gratitude, it really, it allowed me to walk the line and to be comfortable with the fact that I can be happy at this point in the day when I'm finding something to be grateful for in this present moment, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to feel sadness later on this afternoon, And so I think gratitude allowed me to embrace that and be able to walk with both.
Wow. You made me think when you said by this practice of gratitude, you allowed yourself to be able to, I don't remember how you said it, pointing me towards joy, or it was almost as if by practicing that one intentional practice, you were opening that heart space up towards healing while doing it.
Absolutely. And when I talk about my journey and I encourage other people for use of using gratitude in difficult times, I talk about living with an open heart, and you can give yourself permission. So because I chose to approach my grief in this way, finding gratitude was not only a way to get through, but it translated for me a way to honor Stephen. So it didn't turn into anything that I was trying to look away from grief, because by doing this, I was honoring the beautiful, positive soul that he was. He appreciated so much of life,
Mm-hmm.
Lived very fully, and so it just seemed like a very natural companion.
That's neat.
So I'm wondering, did he have this ability? Was he grateful? Was gratitude a part of his world, a part of his life?
Stephen he was just a very old soul, very kind, and I can't take the credit for all of this. I don't know. I look at him and I kind of wonder, where did you come from? I don't think I had that talent parenting. I think it was just innately who he was. He was the kind of boy who always he was people gravitated towards him, but he didn't like to be the center of attention. He always kind of stood at the periphery of a crowd so that he could see what people needed, and then he went to work giving it to them. Stephen was actually an identical twin, and his brother died at birth, and so I always felt with Stephen that he just had this wisdom that maybe we did not. And that he walked in this life in a way that he knew the balance of life and death and the importance of compassion and kindness. He was a beautiful, beautiful soul. So I learned a lot from him. And, I always say Stephen was a gift, and how I conduct myself now is my way of saying thank you.
Wow, that was something that we didn't know on your story.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people are going to resonate with that. Did you, when Stephen's twin died at birth, do you remember how you handled that aspect?
I think, I think I probably buried it a little bit. I didn't deal with it in this way at all. I think I dealt with it quietly, and actually Stephen was born in 1986, and so the conversation around loss around birth was not as open as it is now either. So it was just I probably didn't truly grieve Matthew, his brother, until I was grieving Stephen. I think I went through that grief process all over again and reflected.
Yeah.
And then each year, so they were identical twins, so each year when Stephen would have a birthday, I would know exactly how he would, what he looked like and all of those things, but it was always this balance. And so truly, and I write about this in my book, Stephen's birth prepared me for that balance, right? For the balance of happy and sad. Stephen and Matthew, at the beginning of Stephen's life, I learned that lesson, and now I feel like I'm carrying it through.
Wow. You're such an inspiration, and it's no wonder you have touched the lives of so many. I know Sharon was about to ask you something.
Well, no, I'm an identical twin. So when you shared that, I just really dug even deeper.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Well, so you would understand that bond. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With this practice that you landed on, how did that actually change your world or change your life, give you a sense of, I think you had mentioned a purpose. How did that give you that sense of purpose?
So, I started this to try to survive. And at the time when Stephen passed, his younger brother was 11. And so I knew that as his mother, that I had to work very hard to give him a happy life, that even though this had happened, that he deserved to have a happy life. So we decided that we were going to do this gratitude thing, and we would ask about it every single day. What are you thankful for today? What, we would sit, what's your one little thing? And it anchored us to the present moment. It allowed us, so when I'm looking in this moment for something to be thankful for, I'm here and I'm now. So I'm not thinking about the past or the trauma that has happened to me in my life. I'm not anxious about the future. And when you lose a child, in the way that Stephen passed, I work with my anxiety about sending Brendan out into the world, my younger son. So when you look for gratitude, you're right here, right now, and everything's okay. And so it tethered me to that present moment. And each day I would add a little knot in that rope and kind of and build on it. In terms of the bigger picture for things, by sharing it, I had no idea how many people would reach back to me and say, okay, so you're doing this and this is what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
And I've been incredibly humbled by that. And in terms of my purpose, writing books and speaking is a pleasure, and I feel very thankful for that. But truly, I sit here sometimes in my pajamas and I write back to other moms who've lost their children or people who are going through very difficult times, because my younger son, Brendan, told me that if people write to me, I have to write them back, and I made that promise.
Good for you, Brendan.
Yeah. Well,
And good for you, Mom.
yeah, he said, if they write you, it means they're hurting like we are. So you need to write them back. Wise soul too. And so that's my purpose. Everything else is wonderful, but my purpose is writing back to those moms.
Like, I can imagine that people write you about, all sorts of stories and situations and heartbreak and pain and gratitude to you for your inspiration, and probably a lot of questions. So what are some not typical, because nothing's typical when it comes to death, but what are some of the things that you see as people respond to you?
Well, I think most commonly is that people want to share their story. So they relate to what I've said about my life. And I never take that for granted, because I was always very private about, the whole thing that I just explained to you about Stephen's birth and Matthew. I didn't tell that story before Stephen died. I didn't really share that with a lot of people. And so I think they recognized that I was being open and honest, and they had permission to be open and honest in return. Some were thankful for it. Some had questions about how I would do it. There's a lot of emails that I get that people would say, I really like what you're doing, but I can't do it because. And there's some variation of that sentence. And I understand that. Because I've had days where I say, I really like what I'm doing, but I don't know if I can do this anymore, because, we're all human, and we all have that self-doubt that enters into our mind from time to time. And I always say, just as you mentioned earlier about, making that intention, this is an intentional choice. I tell them that they have that power. You have the power to choose the path you take for grief. And especially for me as a bereaved parent, a lot of bereaved parents feel that there is only one path. And I just don't agree with that. I think that there's a way that you can grieve and still find hope in your life as well.
Which is it's such a beautiful message, because it's your own experience that you had that you can now share with other people. And, that's the powerful part of it. And, where you're coming from with that, with people.
Right. And it doesn't take away your pain. And I often, when people question me that question, how do you do this? Or I can't do it because, and I said, I don't want you to expect that this is going to diminish the pain of your loss. But I do want you to expect that this will diminish the suffering that you have with your loss. So I think it's Pema Chodron, and maybe someone said it before her, but it's a great quote, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And so that's kind of how I look at using gratitude with loss.
Yeah, I love that. What you just said a minute ago, I had to write it down because it was just such a wonderful quote. You have the power to choose the path you take with grief. or in grief or for grief, however you wanted to say it. And then I like the follow-up that you just said too, which was it doesn't take away the pain. It doesn't all of a sudden make the situation, joyous, and it doesn't make it all fluff. And I think sometimes people look at gratitude as just one of those superficial Band-Aids that doesn't really solve anything, but puts a rosy glow over a very dark situation, when in fact you've experienced the opposite. And it's, part of why we've said throughout a lot of these interviews with these amazing people that you have joined us, is that we wanted to really talk about gratitude in a deeper way, to show the power that it has. And I think you've nailed it with that quote. You have the power to choose the path you take with grief. By your intentional practice of gratitude, you're taking back your power, and you're stepping away from victim into survivor and saying, this is who I am. And and you said earlier too, Kelly, which I totally respect, that you were able to honor Stephen's life and death by practicing this, by choosing to live that way. That's a huge wow, and very empowering for anyone who reads your blogs, reads your book, listens to you. So thank you for the message that you're sharing.
Well,
Wow.
thank you. And I mean, I think if I was to want one point to be conveyed to whoever was listening to this, is that they can honor the person that they've lost to, right? And so this is something you may feel a bit hokey. I often talk to people when you first start a gratitude practice that it feels like, oh God, I'm a bit fluffy here now, looking for writing in my gratitude journal. People, especially when you've been through a hard time, you can feel a little cynical. But give it a month and start to notice what you notice differently in your day. And you will feel like you're honoring the person that you've lost to. And what better way to honor someone who's gone before you than to live a joyful life?
So what do you do now to practice gratitude?
So I find gratitude in the morning and in the evening. Sometimes I share it. So I have a Facebook group. You mentioned in the intro. So sometimes I share it on the Facebook group. Sometimes my gratitude is just private, just for me. If we're going through something in our family and we're making progress, I'll write it in my own journal about what I'm thankful for. I have blessing stones. So they're little stones. It's like a little worry stone that you hold in your hand, and it's smooth on one side and rough on the other, which is like the balance of life. And so I always have them in my purse. My purse weighs about 50 pounds. My husband, when he goes to pick it up, he's like, what is going on? But I got blessing stones in his Ziploc in my purse, because I meet people along the way. And when I meet, for example, we were going college shopping for my son, and we're at Target, and we're in the checkout line, and the cashier started a wonderful conversation with my son about college, and she was just so delightful, and it was super, super busy in the store. So I pull out the blessing stone, and my son says, oh, here we go, right? Because he's used to me now. And I say, I just wanted to let you know that I'm grateful for you. And I always when I give them away, I give them two. So I said, this is just something to remind you to be grateful. And I explained the stone, rough on one side, smooth on the other. And I said, and I'm giving you two because I know you know someone who needs it. And so that has become part of my gratitude process, that every time I'm out and I see that someone's doing something beautiful, I've made a choice in my life that I'm going to tell them. And so I have my friends doing that, and my sisters are doing that, and so we're spreading a little ripple of happiness. That's gratitude in action.
That's another example of your purpose, because a lot of times, well, in the culture that we have set up, we see the parameters of purpose are not one-on-one interactions. The parameters of purpose tend to be 1 to 1,000 or 1 to 100,000, or so much bigger. Let me share my message so I can have greater impact. Yeah. And yet, as you mentioned earlier in this conversation, you felt that your purpose really is to be able to sit in your pajamas, which we need to get her a coffee mug or something. Do you drink coffee?
Oh
I
my
mean, I could just see it. And that would be wonderful. Yeah, and write those, responses to people one-on-one. So you're taking that time to sit in that one-on-one intimate relationship, and doing the same thing with the blessing stones by taking that moment to say.
Absolutely.
The power of your message, Kelly, is enormous, because we know that gratitude has power, but you're also tying in just love and compassion, human to human, authentic compassion, to say, here, let's heal together. And that's just expansive. And gosh, do we need a lot of that today.
Oh
So
boy, ever.
and so these blessing stones, do they come in sets of 2, or do they come in sets of 1? How do they come?
They come in.
Do you have one with you?
I do, yeah.
Let me, can you hold it up to the camera so we can see? So hold it up there and we can see that. Oh, that's nice. So that's the smooth side, and there's the rough side.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So I hold it like this, and it fits perfectly, because the couple that makes them, they're
It's
handmade.
like a worry stone, but you're calling it a blessing stone. So at the purpose is to pull you out of that worry.
So when I have it in my pocket, and so, for example, my older son was a goalie, and I explained what happened there. My younger son is a goalie as well, and so and he plays college hockey. So when I go to watch him, it can sometimes give me a little anxiety. I wanted to put him in bubble wrap, but I wasn't allowed to do that. So I had to find a way to manage it. I always have this in my pocket, and I'm thankful that he's doing what he loves. I'm thankful that he's getting to live his life exactly like he wants, and that I'm able to manage my anxiety and not hold him back. I'm being very honest there. That's the residual effect of Stephen's death, but I use this little stone to kind of remind me. We've sent them all over the world. There was a addiction center in Chicago that gives them out to their clients, and they hold on to them. They have them in their pocket. There's teachers that give them to the kids in the classroom, and it's just turned into a really nice, tangible little piece of hope.
I love that. And I was also just taking a quick browse through some of the items that you have, which are just so inspiring on your website. So Kelly Buckley's website is kellybuckley.com, and you can find the blessing stones there, as well as her book, Gratitude and Grief, and Just One Little Thing, which is another book. And I love the message that you give about perfectly imperfect too.
Yeah.
It's, it's interesting, because in searching for just one little thing, you're allowing yourself humanity in a way that a lot of times we don't. And you coming from that corporate background, I think you said you were a COO. That's a pretty big responsibility there. Always focused on what's going wrong. So being perfectly imperfect is being able to transition into hey, here's life. This life can be really messy, and sometimes it can hurt, but there are still some pretty beautiful things that are around, and some pretty amazing people.
Absolutely. And I mean, primarily I do most of my work with women. And as women, I think that we beat ourselves up a lot for we don't tend to notice what we're doing right. We tend to notice what we're doing wrong, or what is wrong with our body image, or whatever. We're critical. We're self-critical. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of it is, whether it's with grief, or whether it's with divorce, or whatever, I try to tell people, yeah, you're not perfect. Nobody is. And it's okay. And it's okay for you to be happy and sad. And it's okay for you to embrace your imperfections, or what's going on. The point of it is, how can you learn to appreciate life, and how can you rise? And on my website, there's a shirt, and it's called Unsinkable. And actually my niece Carissa is an artist, and she designed the shirt and the cards and all those things. She's super, super talented. And it says on the shirt, she is tossed by waves, but she does not sink. And I just love that, because I like to tell people, you're unsinkable. You're going to be okay. Focus on what's going right in your life. Focus. There's always blessings around you, even when you don't think there is. Take a moment and center yourself, and you'll find them.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Wow, that's beautiful. So
Mhm.
we can't really thank you enough for being on, and I can't believe we're already coming to the close of our time, but we do have one final question for you.
Okay.
And Sharon's going to ask that.
Yeah. So Kelly, we've talked so much about gratitude and with your life experience and where you've taken it. How would you summarize your personal definition of gratitude?
My personal definition of gratitude is just, I guess if I was to look at my entire life and the things that I've been through, it would have been much easier for me to close my heart. It really, truly would have. And that morning at the lake that I told you about, that was that fork in the road where I had that choice to make, right? My personal definition of gratitude is that morning when I look at that fork in the road, every morning I put my feet on the floor. I'm thankful I took that path. Because I know for a fact, carrying the loss of a child, I know for a fact that if I had not, I'm not sure if I would have survived. I'm really not sure. So every day I'm thankful for that one choice, and that defines me and who I am now.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You're an example of how to open your heart to life and not close yourself off in spite of we hear about everybody who loses somebody. It's painful, but then when you hear about a parent losing a child, because that's the wrong way around.
Yes.
And that's one of the most difficult things, if not to experience in life. And you are a living, breathing, loving, kind, and compassionate example of how to survive and then thrive and have authentic human connection at the same time. So thank you for not closing yourself off. Thank you for opening your heart that day and every day to help people learn to be open to loving themselves and loving life. That's what you're doing, and we're just so grateful to you for being on the show.
Yes. I mean, thank you so much for sharing your story, your message, all that you're doing and what you're changing, helping people's hearts and lives and parents and families and so many people. And it's not a little thing today that I'm so grateful for you. It's a big thing.
It's one little thing
just
has
one
big fantastic effect.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. It's my pleasure. And I may have started Jolt, but the people who I've met along the way, they're the true inspiration, because they're making their choices. They're making intentional choices to choose that path, and I continue to be inspired.
Awesome. And if you want to learn more about Kelly, again, her website is kellybuckley.com. Again, thank you, Kelly, and thank you for everybody who tuned in today for the Global Gratitude Summit. We'll see you next time.